I got him for Lauren. I just had dinner with the Obama, what did you do? Hop up on Twitter talking about the stuff you don't do. Rock off for Lauren, shawty, cause that is what you gon' do. Sabiato, New Balance, some style.
3rd down and 6, right up the gut. That is Gibson, and he is gone. 3rd of the ball game for the rookie Antonio Gibson.
Farms at the farms, all you hear is oi. One time for BDR, we just try and see you out. I used to be with Nas, beating Norwich City up. Watching you talking to one respect about it.
Picked up, and Mullins fumbles the football. Washington has it back. Chase Young, they're chasing him down the sideline. And Chase Young has a Washington touchdown.
I've been ungrateful but thankful. I've been ungrateful but thankful.
Maybe I got it all too fast and too soon. Been living life, no feelings, no rules. And I've been trying to make it last, make it move.
But I'ma hop in this foreign and like a fool.
I've been
ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Burgundy Network podcast. I'm your host, Josh Taylor. Usually joining me is Brian Murphy, who has sick baby duty this afternoon, so prayers out to my guy. Brian got his hands full this afternoon, but joining me is Nate Coleman and George Carmi from FPC Washington Full Press Coverage. How y'all gentlemen doing?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having us here.
What's going on?
I know Nate and George said they were grabbing some beers. I was like, dang, I ain't got no beers in the house. All I got is a couple cigars and energy drinks. So we're going to live it up this afternoon. And just
sounds fun. They have a good time.
What can go wrong?
I know. And best part of all of it, we're talking about Nate's favorite thing this afternoon, and that is wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get better than that. That's Nate's love language in the football realm. This episode
I have
is
a
called,
smile on my face.
If you're watching on YouTube, you see it. If you're listening, it's there. It's full. This episode is going to be called Reading the Wide Receiver Room and is brought to you by 500 Level, who specializes in officially licensed T-shirts like this Terry McLaurin shirt, who I had to rep for the wide receiver episode. But you can get your favorite MLB, NBA, NHL teams, players, even wrestlers, which I thought was pretty sick. But check 500level.com. Use our code BNP20 to get 20% off your shirts. This is literally, I'm so picky about my shirts. Like, I wear like the same 10 shirts. This is one of them. And I have a Chase Young one and a John Morant shirt. So most comfortable shirt I own, and it looks good. So that helps. But gentlemen, this afternoon, like I said, we were going to be talking about the wide receiver room and what it could possibly look like. Some guys in the draft. We won't dig too deep into it, but I just want to get an overall read of what the room currently looks like. And, talk about how great Dontrell Inman was last year, which I knew Nate is just
Standout star.
Yeah. And then how Alabama has the top 2 wide receivers in the draft. We'll definitely go over that also. But taking a look at our situation last year with our mediocre quarterback play, how many quarterbacks have we had last season? Like 3, 4?
4.
Seems like it was 4, exactly. And Terry McLaurin still shines like the superstar he is. 87 catches, 1,187 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a couple lingering injuries throughout the season, and just pushed through. Nate, how impressive is it for, we talk about draft guys and Terry being a 3rd-round gem for us. How impressive is it that no matter who is on the field throwing the ball, Terry still gets that production?
Yeah, I tell you, like, Terry is the rare outlier who just exceeds every expectation you could possibly have. He's the only receiver I know of in the history of the NFL to finish in the top 24 and not have a breakout age. I mean, it just shows you, like, maybe Dwayne Haskins could have done a lot more with him. Like, imagine if Justin Fields was there when Terry McLaurin was there. We'd be talking about him like we talk about Devontae Smith because he's really old and he played way too long in college. But yeah, Terry McLaurin is fantastic. I mean, I'm excited for him. Another thing that really stuck with me that I tweeted this out today is people talk about Curtis Samuel, and they're worried about, like, can he play on the outside? Can he not play on the outside? And in 2019, when Scott Turner was the offensive coordinator for the Panthers, Samuel played a lot more on the outside, and he actually led the NFL in difference between air yards and receiving yards, meaning like there was a huge discrepancy because guess what? All the deep balls were not complete, and the guy throwing him the ball was Kyle Allen. Now, like, fast forward this year, Curtis Samuel was the most efficient receiver on deep yardage receptions, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was 2nd in the NFL in deep ball completion percentage. So that's something that just popped out at me. I mean, that's a nice little bonus there. So
that's a love poem straight to Nate. Those two put together that's the perfect combo. That's a steak and baked potato combo. So this is where it gets interesting because after Terry, we've always just had like this drop off of this guy that's undrafted, this guy who drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, wherever. And last season it ended up being Cam Sims, who finally, after how many years of being the preseason training camp hero for so many years, finally shows up in the regular season. George, what do you think contributed to that? Do you think it was, Alex Smith, stepping in and being his quarterback, or do you think he just finally took advantage of all these guys going down and actually getting playing time?
I think it's natural development, right? What is his 3rd year in the league or something like that? He was plagued with injuries. He just had a tough time kind of developing and transitioning to the league. I did like Cam Sims. I was actually one of his hardest critics and hardest detractors for years. And everyone kind of argued and kind of looked at his upside and his physical traits, which are there. He's a big wide receiver. He can catch at the high point. He has a lot of good qualities that are there. And it was kind of nice, for a wide receiver 4. He definitely rose to the occasion. He had a couple of large games where he had about tickled about 100 yards and 90 yards receiving there. Like that. And tickled 100 yards. And it's like I just think the biggest flaw with Washington last year is everybody played up a level. Like our wide receiver 3 was playing wide receiver 2, our wide receiver 4 is playing 3. And it's like if everyone's kind of took a step back with the influx of Samuel, which they will, I think it was provide some depth for us. I think we'll have a well-rounded core now. I think Cam Sims being a wide receiver 4 will provide that opportunity. And I'm excited. I'm not saying he's going to blow up, but I think he will be that big body in the red zone if we need him.
Yeah, I said this on our show. I think them actually bringing back Cam Sims was on their list of things to do in this offseason because we've seen how fast our wide receivers went down last year. I mean, we bring in Jeff Baddock, Tony Brown, Emmanuel Hall, Robert Foster at the end of the season. It's just like we're citing guys off the street because everyone was going down. And Cam Sims is a guy who, even since back in high school, I remember at the Under Armour game, he just battled injuries throughout his whole career. It seemed like high school, college, and then some in the NFL also. But after that, Kelvin Harmon, who we had high hopes for going into the season because he showed some flashes with Haskins, looked really good. And then tears his ACL back in July. It was kind of weird because it went unheard of. And then he's like, hey, guys, I had surgery today. And we're like, what kind of surgery? I just tore my ACL. No big deal. I'm out for the season. We're just like, oh, that was kind of surprising. Now, Nate, how much do you really expect out of Harmon based off of what you saw the year before? And how hard is it for a physical, bigger guy like him to come back from ACL tear?
Yeah, so Harmon wasn't a very good prospect, and that was kind of shown out when he got drafted in round 6 instead of, a lot of people are projecting him to go in round 2, which is interesting. Ooh, I just saw the comment that said we should go after Nico Collins.
Okay.
I agree. He had a great pro day, even though those numbers don't matter to Twitter.
Okay. We'll get to that. So Harmon, he's like your possession receiver. The problem with him is he's a possession receiver who doesn't run good routes. So if you're a possession receiver and you don't run good routes and you're not explosive before the catch or after the catch, that's kind of an issue. But what I would say is, encouraging for him is he did produce as a rookie a little bit. And that's more predictive than anything else in the NFL. If you produce as a rookie, you're supposed to carry on the next year and the year after that. Year 2 and year 3 are always the biggest breakout for receivers when it comes to that. So I think he's a solid wide receiver 4. And it's funny though, because I say the same thing about Cam Sims and probably maybe the same thing for AGG. They kind of, in some ways they have redundant skill sets, maybe by their body size and kind of what they do, but I'm not really interested in any of those 3 guys. And the big thing about AGG, the biggest indictment on him is you were talking about all the receivers we had to bring in at the end of the year. Well, he was healthy at the end of the year and they still chose to inactivate him. So that tells you a lot about what they think about him, at least me personally. So who knows if he'll take a step. Level of competition was big for him. So maybe it'll take him an extra year to adjust. But we still need a boundary receiver. And I don't know if he'll address it in the draft. But hey, a guy like Nico Collins, in round 3, that sounds great to me. Did he run a 4.4 or was it a 4.3?
I want to say a low 4.4.
4.4.
I'll have to check.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
Yeah, I love Nico Collins.
I was surprised at 4.4.
Michigan's offense is so bad. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones last year. He showed some flashes with the Browns. Obviously, they have a stacked wide receiver room, but their offense is bottom 3 in the nation every single year. It's so bad. That's why they can't win games. So you mentioned AGG, and as y'all remember, this was my guy last time because we were live on the draft. Yeah, we were rocking
Golden
with it. I
ticket.
was so hyped when we got him. And I'm still rocking with him. He's still my guy. I still have his shirt that I got made literally the day after we drafted him. But to me, like, and I've been saying this to y'all too, as a rookie, and especially, and you bring up a good point, like the elevation and the competition he's having to face now. He had COVID at Liberty. They stayed in school longer than they were supposed to. They were the last college literally to close because of COVID.
That's
Jerry
so
Falwell
surprising.
Jr. was just like, nah,
That's
stay
crazy.
open. COVID doesn't exist. just
Dude,
go
I
to
met
class.
Jerry Falwell Jr. I shook his hand one time. He
I'm
seemed kind of
sorry.
squeezy.
Does he? That's
I'm
funny.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a character. But he stays in school, has COVID, doesn't get really much of a preseason to learn any of the offense. Then he has a hamstring injury throughout the whole season. And we've seen him come on the field sometimes. We're just like, oh, like, here he is. But we didn't really see too much production out of him. Going into this season, and we kind of talk about how similar he is with Cam Sims and Kelvin Harmon. Are you like saying like, hey, this is his last straw before maybe Ron and Scott Turner kind of cuts his leash? George, are you saying that they're going to give him time? Because this is the guy that they drafted.
It's going to be interesting. I think Nate hit the nail on the head. I think between Cam Sims and Kelvin Harmon, they all have redundant qualities, but the other two have kind of showed something, right? Like Kelvin Harmon has popped his rookie year, although that was
Great hands.
Great hands, although that was with Haskins. So maybe, different quarterback, maybe something different there. And Harmon's a very stout and astute blocker. He loves to block. He's kind of aggressive. And I think, Ron Rivera appreciates that. Cam Sims has those physical traits. He's had some, run after catch capabilities that we've seen and displayed there, 50-yard gains and big plays. I think they will give AGG an honest, earnest attempt. But at the same time, I think they're going to let the board talk to them, right? If a good wide receiver falls to them in the, second, third, fourth round, they take them, is outperforming them. It's a production business, right? Fourth round pick isn't a heavy investment. I mean, it is a investment. So, you definitely want them to hit and succeed. But at the same time, maybe you can stash him, maybe you can let him go. But I just don't think, they're going to give him his best attempt, but they're going to look other places as well. And I think Nate also brought up a good point, right? Going into the playoffs, end of the season, they didn't activate him, right? All preseason, all offseason, we heard how stiff he was and how he wasn't acclimating to the NFL professional game. And now we're seeing that they're, possibly looking at N'Keal Harry in a trade in the fourth round. There's a lot of smoke to there's not really a love fest for AGG. So, I think the attachment is somewhat there, but at the same time, they could always look to improve.
Yeah, it's just nothing to really get too excited over yet. Like you said, Cam Sims had a couple big plays last season. It seemed like his route running got a lot better, like especially like you said, after the catch, he made some bursts. I mean, compared to what we were seeing in Alabama, his route tree was like either go deep or you just kind of cut across the middle. It wasn't really much to him, hence why he didn't really get used too much at Alabama. But I feel like out of all the three, I honestly think AGG has the best skill set with both getting separation, not relying too much on his size or just being big, route running, and then just his burst and acceleration. I think out of the three guys, honestly, I think he's the best, which sucks that he's the one that we're kind of like, hey, we haven't seen anything out of it. So those are our outside guys. Now, there's such an interesting topic that's come up that I've been on fire about, and I've definitely let my voice be heard on this, and that is moving big guys to tight end.
Okay.
Nate, when the hell did this become a trend? And why is Niles Paul the one guy that keeps getting brought up to me? And it's like, is that our bookmark of moving big guys to tight end?
It's just a thing people say. I mean, it's not really, I wouldn't pay any attention to it. I mean, if you're talking about receivers and you want to talk about moving them to tight end, that usually means they're bad receivers. Case in point, Hakeem Butler. I mean, I remember we all loved Hakeem Butler. He was a highly ranked receiver, and now he can't find a job. And the Eagles wanted to play him at tight end, and he got replaced by Richard Rodgers. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't pay attention to that stuff. I mean, if the first thing you say about a receiver is he's an awesome blocker, that tells me he sucks. I mean, that's just a telltale sign that like he's not a good receiver. If that's the first thing that comes to mind, like I know that'll bother some of the football guys, but your job isn't to go out there and block. Like, yeah, you can block. Your job is to go out there, win routes, catch the ball and then create after the catch. So yeah, I don't know why you would move any of those guys. They need to invest in the tight end position. They need to invest in the wide receiver position.
Thank you.
And so that's what needs to happen. I don't understand that argument at all. Like, and like, I know AGG and Cam Sims and Harmon are all good blockers. Like, that's true. All three of them are pretty good, but like, I think that says more about them as receivers than anything else.
Being big is not a reason to move someone to tight end. And like, to me, it's always been like, if you're going to just move a guy, and everyone that I've talked to says, hey, my reason for it is because he's on the team already. Why draft another guy? How much capital do we have in Cam Sims, who was undrafted? And like you said, drafting AGG in the 4th round, is that really a big loss? I mean, we just lost Haskins. I hate to say his name so late, but we just lost a 15th round, like, overall pick. Like, I don't care about a 4th round, like, draft pick on a wide receiver. If you're telling me that a guy like Cam Sims or Kelvin Harmon is going to take the spot of possibly a Hunter Long, or like Gregory just mentioned, Trimble out of Notre Dame, or like an actual tight end, like, why would you do that? Why is that? Like, I just want to know, like, what started this trend of just, we have the guy on the team, just move him. See if he pans out well. See if he can go from blocking a 195-pound corner to like a blitzing linebacker, from time to time, stuff like this. And they're not always going to be just an inline blocker as a tight end, not saying that, but there's going to be times where you have to. Like, if not, they're just like, oh, well, he's lined up as a tight end. He's obviously it's a pass play. Like, he's not blocking anybody. Cam Sims is tall self, like no center of gravity. He's not going to block like an outside linebacker. So I just thought that was interesting. I don't know where that came from. I think Kime or JP or someone brought it up.
I think John Kine filled it, Josh. That's what happened. He dropped it on his pod. He mentioned Kelvin Harmon, and he started all this. And I agree with Nate. I think, I think being a tight end, it's a mindset, it's a mentality. You basically have to be 250 pounds, 260 pounds. You have to lay the wood, you have to block. And I don't see Kelvin Harmon and Cam Sims transitioning very well. I think they are like 215, 220 now. We already kind of have a smaller, move tight end, like, flex tight end with Logan Thomas. We need someone more well-rounded. And if we run a stout blocker, Thad Moss, you guys all hate him. He is on the roster. We have him there. We could use him as a blocker per se, but it is wasted. I mean, I agree with you there. I'm just saying, but like, I just don't see the need or the benefit. I think you should always aim to put your best 53 players on the field. You're always aiming for high upside, high ceiling, as opposed to like, medium floor. You're always trying to go for it. Why transition Kelvin Harmon? He's not going to break it open for anybody. So
yeah. Like, what do you think he's going to turn to Travis Kelce? Like,
no, not at all.
What are you looking for? And then my favorite is people like, well, we have a quarterback, that turned into a tight end. But Logan Thomas is also 6'7", like 45, and knew coming out of the draft he was not going to be a quarterback.
And he's still learning how to play tight end, by the way. Like, he's still learning how to block. He's still learning how to run route. I mean, he's cool, but like, come on.
And what year is this? This is his 4th year, right?
He's like 29 now. A tight end is one of the longest positions in the NFL to develop. You can't expect a guy in year 1 to like contribute to your team most of the time. It's very rare. Like, think about even like 1st round tight ends. Think about TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant. I mean, it took them a year or two to really acclimate to the NFL. So people don't understand. You basically have to learn to be an offensive lineman. You have to learn all the blocking schemes. You have to learn how to seal the edge. And there's run blocking and pass blocking. And then on top of that, you have to learn how to run routes, learn the playbook. I mean, there's a lot to it. That's why the more you have going on, the harder it is. That's why like I'm weary of like hybrid players, because I'm not saying they're not incredibly talented. I'm saying it's hard to learn all those positions. And if the coaching staff isn't invested in them like they should be, I mean, they could wash out. So that's kind of something I worry about.
I'd much rather move a tight end to wide receiver like Chase Claypool, because if you're that size, like, you can just move outside. You're just perfecting your route running and wide receiver skills. You're not really doing much blocking. If you can block a linebacker, like I said, you can take care of a 195, 200 corner with ease. But it's a player by player basis to me. Like, if we had a guy that could possibly move, I could get it. But like, my biggest argument is why Cam Sims, Kelvin Harmon, like, they're average wide receivers at that, and you're saying move them to a whole nother position. Like, do you really think that it's going to elevate anything? No. Anyways, to me, that was like something I've been the most passionate about this last month or two. Seems like I don't get it. Like, I'm like, when did we stop evaluating tight ends? When did we just say, let's just not draft a tight end? We went from, let's sign Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, to, you know what, Cam Sims could be a tight end, couldn't he? Like,
we went from Thad Moss, we need to draft him in the top 3 rounds, to let's switch from receiver to tight end. So full circle.
So Shelly, I know she's passionate about it too. Who can we draft in the later round at tight end in the draft? For me, Matt Bushman, he slipped because of his injury. He's a great tight end from BYU. Kind of opened up the door for some other tight ends at BYU, but I think he's projected like 4th, 5th, maybe even later because of his injury. Who's the one you have, Nate?
Yeah, so Bushman is like, dude, he's so old.
Come on,
he's like he went on a missions trip. I'm not even like kidding. I think he's like 24 or 25 now. So. Look. By the time he develops into a tight end, he's going to be like 28. He's going to be like Logan Thomas.
Get 2-3 years out of him. That's all I'm asking for.
I mean, if you're talking about a day 3 pick, like hell yeah, go for it. So if there's one tight end I love, it's Hunter Long. So Hunter Long probably won't go on day 2.
Guy. Yeah,
he'll probably go like round 4. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like
that'd be good.
So Hunter Long played in 2 completely different offensive schemes. His first year, he played in a run-heavy offense with A.J. Dillon, and they just pounded the rock. And he still won all ACC honors as the best tight end in that conference. And he won that mainly for being a blocker. Next year, they completely transformed their offense to more of a pro style.
Quarterback.
Because they got a real quarterback, and he led the nation in receptions for a tight end. So it kind of shows you he can be a blocker and he can be a receiver. Now, he's not a great athlete. I mean, he tested very highly for the RAS scoring. I think he was in the upper like 80th percentile overall. But he's a guy who kind of like Zach Ertz. Like maybe he's not like a great athlete, but he's a guy who can get a lot of volume. Think of like a Austin Hooper, Zach Ertz, something like that. Not exciting, but someone who can definitely be your tight end too at the minimum.
Just reliable hands, move the chains.
Reliable, yeah. I think he's a good investment. I like, and Trimble too. Everyone loves Trimble, and so I'm sure you guys will talk about him.
I like Trey McKitty too. He was good at the Senior Bowl. Probably had the best one-handed catch from the tight ends that week. Another guy that could be like 4th, 5th round later on. Definitely behind Hunter Long. I think Hunter Long's pretty high up there. So yeah, like I'm glad y'all on the same page as me. I was praying to God and neither one of y'all would be like, well, why couldn't they move to tight end? So glad y'all have common sense. No shade thrown to the people on Twitter. So looking on the inside, Nate, you kind of talked about this with Curtis Samuel. We're not going to talk too much about him, but one thing that I've seen a lot and I've debated a lot on Twitter is people saying Curtis Samuel is going to play a lot as wide receiver Z on that outside role. I don't think so. You might disagree with me, but I think we signed him primarily to be that slot guy and then also more in the backfield, just like how he was in Carolina last year. He'll play some on the outside. I'm not saying he's not going to see any of the outside. I think he will, but I feel like we're going to use him primarily as a slot guy, kick Steven Sims off the team, and then be a run guy also. How do you think we're going to use him, Nate?
Yeah, and I think George probably shares the same sentiment here. But like, so when Turner was offensive coordinator in Carolina, he played him a lot more on the outside. Joe Brady didn't because they added Robbie Anderson. But it seemed like he had a lot more success in Joe Brady's offense as a slot receiver. And I see him playing more in the slot here, but I'm sure they'll move him around, but he's still small and he doesn't really have as much experience playing on the outside. He played mostly running back in college and even in high school. So I don't know that that's his strength, but like most receivers now are pretty multiple. They can play all over the field. Just, it depends how much you're talking about, but I don't know, George, you kind of feel the same way or?
Yeah, 100%. I think, so basically 2 years ago, Scott Turner, I feel like he should learn from Joe Brady, right? I feel a couple of years ago, we had him on the outside. I think it was about 70% of his routes were on the outside. He only played about 150 in the slot position. So it definitely worried me. I was like, Curtis Samuel was tight end. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so I feel like that was to his detriment, right? I know he has that 4.3 speed, but I feel like you basically limit his route tree. He's basically a deep wide receiver at that point, maybe a couple quick slants or a screen over there. Joe Brady used him in the slants. In the slot, also used him in the backfield as a rusher. And I thought that was more intriguing. I think Curtis Samuel was more of a weapon than a pure wide receiver, in my opinion. I think Scott Turner hopefully has learned from that. I think I am kind of pessimistic, though. I hope that Scott Turner is open-minded, but for some reason or another, I'm not seeing it. I feel like with the addition of Humphreys, I feel like they're going to use him as slot quite often and try to flex and move Curtis Samuel around. So we will see Curtis Samuel in the Z position more often than we think we will, but I also think we'll see him like more on jet sweeps and running the ball as well. I think just manufacturing touches should be the way to go. Like I think between him and McLaurin, no matter what we do with Samuels, get him the ball because he is explosive. So just use him wherever you can. And hopefully Scott Turner That's my big thing this year. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. Scott Turner has potential to be a very good offensive coordinator. He has no more excuses now, right? He has Ryan Fitzpatrick, he has Curtis Samuel, he has Antonio Gibson in year 2, Terry McLaurin. They're probably going to add someone else. They have Humphreys. He has the flexibility. He has an experienced quarterback that isn't restricted like Haskins was last year, right? So it should open up. Our challenge as fans should be watching Turner and seeing his growth as well. That should be the next step. So hopefully Samuel is being used pretty flexibly next year.
Yeah, I will say real quick, there's a lot of parallels between that 2019 Panthers team and our offense right now. If you think about it, like you got DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, right? You have Curtis Samuel. Yeah, for tight ends, you got Logan Thomas and old Greg Olson. I mean, it's pretty similar. And then, obviously Christian McCaffrey is amazing, but like you're still talking about like a similar offense, and that offense completely just disappointed. And maybe it's because it was Scott Turner's kind of first rodeo really calling the plays, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Because I remember that year they did an awesome job of like creating opportunities for Christian McCaffrey, like out of the backfield, running routes, running flexed out. So maybe you'll see Antonio Gibson really get an expanded role this year. And maybe they'll finally be able to run block better. Because like, God, they've been terrible at that.
I will say y'all mentioned how, Curtis Samuel's role was different last year because of Joe Brady. I will say his touches went down, but his production seemed to go up. Based off of, having limited touches, which is easy to do when you have DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson on the outside. You're pretty much stuck on the slot, like you said, and in the backfield. And we saw his rushes go from 9 the year before to 41 last year. Do you think that, they're going to not lean as heavy? I think we'll all agree that we're going to draft another late round running back, something like that. Who knows? But do you think, George, that they're really going to rely on him that heavy in the run game? Or do you think it's just going to kind of fizzle out much more since we have AGG, J.D. McKissick, and then possibly another guy? Gibson.
I think about 40 is about a realistic touch option for him in the backfield. I think it'd be very smart to do that as well, right? I think just basically we keep hearing versatility in the Washington offense. Why not take advantage of it, right? People don't really realize that, but walking into Ohio State, Curtis Samuel came in as a running back. People always kind of assume him as a gadget player, as a wide receiver. He came in as a highly recruited running back, so he does have the ability to actually run in between the tackles on, anything, a dive, jet sweep, or anything of that regard. I would like to see him in the backfield quite often. I don't think it would hurt. How nice would it be to have a split back formation, Antonio Gibson and Curtis Samuel, wheel routes going to the side, doing anything, RPO, whatever you want, dude. You have total flexibility. So I would aim for that. I think we should see about 40 touches for him in the backfield, hopefully. And if you think about it, it's not much, right? 17-game season, maybe three times a game, possibly, right? Maybe even less than that. So it's not that bad. Go for it.
Yeah. He's the opposite of Gibson, went from wide receiver to running back to wide receiver kind of thing. But they can both still do both things really well, which we've seen. I think we'll see more of Gibson catching next year too.
I think your point though, Josh, the only reason his Samuel will be limited is because McKissick is there. I think just having that, because it's kind of redundant. Gibson, McKissick, Samuel, they're all kind of the same. But I don't know. That's the only thing.
What are you going to say, Nate?
Yeah, typically what you see with rookie running backs, you guys know this because I'm a fantasy nerd, but their second year, they tend to just their workload tends to skyrocket if they showed something as a rookie. So you're going to see less of J.D. McKissick potentially because of that, and also because I expect them to play in more neutral game scripts and play with the lead more. But I wouldn't expect 40 carries for Samuel. I would project less than that, only because you got to remember with the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey went out, so he was out. And then on top of that, Mike Davis was awesome for them, but he got banged up quite a bit. So they just decided to use Curtis Samuel a little bit more out of the backfield. I think you'll see that, but it won't be like that much. You'll see a lot more jet sweeps and stuff like that on the outside, which will be really exciting. He's a lot more dangerous with the ball in his hands than some of these other receivers you think about. Like a guy who, I think the guy last year who led the NFL in jet sweeps. Do you guys know? If you had to guess who, I think it was Robert Woods. And Robert Woods is a guy, he's not that athletic. He's not he's not physically.
I would never guess
that. But he was good. He scored 2 or 3 touchdowns and he had a lot of yards and everything. But Curtis Samuel is way more explosive. So I think that's they'll have to honor the jet sweeps and the end arounds more when they know he's back there. Kind of like you've seen Tyreek Hill, wherever he goes, the defense pays attention. Not that I'm comparing the two, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, to me, it's just go ahead.
I'll just say what I like about Samuel is he's kind of stout. People don't really realize that. He's like 5'11", 205 pounds. Like he has sort of that running back build, so he's pretty big. So, I don't think he's not going to be like, power running every single time. He should be able to get some touches coming around. So exactly. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, to me, it's just, it spreads the field out. We talk about how our offense is supposed to look. And I know me and Nate were actually like pretty impressed by Scott Turner last year compared to other people's. Like me, Georgie might have been too, but I feel like people were really harsh on him. Mm-hmm. But it was really that first season. We still had so many missing pieces. We talked about all the wide receivers we had to bring in throughout the whole season. We talk about how we need another tight end, and then the quarterback play. Like there's so much like missing. I feel like we're going to see more of his offense this season, and it's just going to be more of guys spread out. It's going to be more speed, especially on the outside. Like you said, in rounds and stuff like that. Let's talk about more guys on the inside. So to me, I know me and George are bigger Isaiah Wright fans than Nate is for sure. We talk about this a lot. And I think we're all Steven Sims haters. And then Adam Humphries. So Nate, I haven't really heard you talk too much about Adam Humphries, just on Twitter and stuff like that. I've seen your breakdowns and threads and stuff like that. Love those, by the way. If you had to really put like a short resume together for Adam Humphries to a Washington fan that has no idea who he is, doesn't really watch much outside of him, how would you describe him to the fan base?
He's your replacement level slot receiver. He's a guy who can find separation in the middle of the field, and he knows where to settle in the middle of the field to create a little bit of separation and he's very reliable as a catcher of the football, but he's nothing special. I wouldn't get he's going to be the starter. He's a guy who gets banged up a lot, but he's a solid addition. He can probably return punts too, but he's not very explosive, but he does have a really good rapport with Ryan Fitzpatrick. They played together in Tampa, and he kind of had some of his best games with Fitzpatrick. So I'm excited about him. I think he's a slight upgrade in the fact that he's more sure-handed, and he's a veteran. He knows how to find the holes in the defense, so he's not bad.
Yeah, that's one thing he mentioned in his press conference was Fitzpatrick. He's like, playing with him just makes the game even more fun than it already is. And he talked about that one play out Fitzpatrick, 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, like the lateral pass backwards to him. Just crazy stuff like that. So that's the kind of things that get me hyped for our offense. So it really kind of leaves out Steven Sims and Isaiah Wright. I know we can't put too much in them. Both undrafted free agents. Both I feel like we kind of maxed out, even though Isaiah Wright was his last season, was his first season. Looking at those two, is there anything in them really that just screams, George, that these guys need to come back as like a third option at slot receiver? Or are you letting both of them go?
I think Isaiah Wright, I think he's on the outside looking in. Like they might invite him back to training camp this offseason and kind of give him one last look. But I think he's the most expendable out of everybody. I think Steve Sims let down like the entire Washington organization. I feel bad saying that, but he's like
he let down the entire
organization. He basically ended the 2019 season on an upswing, right? Like he looked like really came in. He had upside. I think he strung together a couple of great games. Like I honestly, he was my I'm going to take that L. He was my breakout player for 2020. I thought he was going to walk in and just be that like that. You're just going to feed him in the slot over and over again. But I think once Coach Ron Rivera is an old school type of coach, right? He is unreliable. He drops the ball. He's definitely on crucial crucial plays. He's also muffled a couple punts as a punt returner, and I don't see him coming back. I see like him coming in a training camp, but depends on who we draft this offseason. One thing that Nate mentioned that I thought was a great point was Adam Humphries. He is a starter level slot receiver, but I think for like 2 years in a row, he has an 85 PFF grade for drops. Like he has one of the fewest drops in the league. Is very reliable. He's going to be that clutch slot receiver that we need. So I'm happy with him, but I think Nate also mentioned very well that his injury. I think he had a concussion history, which I think he lost 9 games last year, if I remember correctly. So that is something to worry about with him.
I will say, I feel like we haven't seen a lot of Isaiah Wright. Like I said, I'm not putting too much into him, but he was an All-American, special teams returner at Temple at one point. I feel like it's worth at least kicking the tires on. Yeah. Considering we have Danny Johnson, and that's really it. I guess Adam Humphries is returning kicks, but
Stroman.
Stroman too. I don't really like DBs returning kicks. Do y'all? I don't know. I've never been a fan. Like, even when I'm playing Madden, I take him out.
No, exactly.
Like, nope.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. Like, as long as you just catch you catch the kick, and like, even if you kneel down, I don't really care. Just don't fumble.
Just don't make it a negative play. Just don't make it a negative play.
Exactly. Which we seen a good bit of Sims last year.
Yeah.
Real quick, like, anytime you get an undrafted free agent or a day 3 pick, like, just be happy if they make the roster. I mean, like for Steve Sims, the fact that he made the roster and contributed in a meaningful way as a rookie, that's more than you can really expect. So just don't expect these crazy things out of these guys, because that's crazy to expect the undrafted free agent to even like make a practice squad. So yeah, I think he's on the bubble. Isaiah Wright can't play receiver. So I don't see him developing. He wasn't a good receiver in college. So why is he going to be a good receiver in the NFL? But like, yeah, special teams is great. But like, if I could use his roster spot for someone else who can play receiver and be a good returner, I mean, let's just do that.
Yeah, I mean, undrafted free agents are nice. Like Steven Montez is supposed to be like our next weapon up here. I mean, so
I thought you were gonna say like James Robinson. Like, yeah, they are nice, and then you said Montez.
Still, I mean, according to Twitter, we're gonna use him like the Saints use.
Dude, that guy's getting cut.
Yeah, I think so too. So this is an interesting guy. Real quick, Cordell Patterson's definitely out there. Upgraded the position. Is he worth kicking the tires on? I mean, he's no Devin Hester, but still one of the top returners in the last few years, honestly.
Yeah, he's one of the 3 best of all time. I mean, yeah, at least with him, he can play like backup receiver. So yeah, that would be an awesome addition.
So my question, George, is we talked about, Sims, Isaiah Wright, more than likely both getting cut. Maybe one comes back, maybe one's practice squad. My biggest question is finishing out the guys on the outside. If you had to pick between Harmon, AGG, and Cam Sims next year, and you have to get rid of one, who is getting cut?
Have to get rid of one?
You got to get rid of one.
I think Harmon's getting cut, guys. That's kind of my perspective there. I think, like as Nate mentioned earlier in the draft or earlier in the pod, he was never a ideal high upside prospect anyway, right? He was known for being a 50 catch receiver, more physicality, more blocking, more of like a lunch pail kind of guy, more of like he overachieved. Sorry, Shelly. Basically, I just think that like not being like he didn't have that natural speed, right? But now that he tore his ACL, he's gonna lose a step. He's gonna lose something, right? Exactly, right. So I think they do like Cam Sims. I think they see that untapped potential in him, so they're going to give him the best opportunity there. I think they did invest in AGG. I do think they want to see what he has there as well. But I just honestly feel they're going to go in the draft. They're going to pick somebody. I'm sure we're going to get to this at one point, Josh. The wide receiving class is awesome this year. To be fantastic. So it's prudent for us to draft someone and move up there. So I just see Harmon going. They might pull the whole Bryce Love and put him on IR and kind of keep him on the shelf for a little while and protect him. But I just don't see him. Being a part of our roster.
All right, Nate, I got to ask you. Honestly, I agree with you, George. I'm cutting Harmon. Not because Cam Sims went to Alabama, but I like what he did last season. I think there's something there. And like I said, I feel like bringing him back was part of their offseason plan. And like, I'm going to get roasted for this, but I swear, I believe AGG has the best skill set of the 3. Like, I feel like his upside and his potential, if he gets like going and, an actual season without COVID and a hamstring injury and an actual offseason, I feel like he can do something. I like his strides, I like his route running, I like his body control, his frame, his high point. I think out of the 3, he gets separation better than the other 2. Nate, who are you picking to get cut?
Yeah, so the biggest predictor for NFL success with these guys is draft capital. I mean, draft capital is number 1. So a guy like AGG, they invested a lot in him, and that's the new regime. So I'm sure they're still invested in him, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not really excited about any of those 3. They don't get me excited. It's funny when you think about this rookie receiver class last year. Every receiver, man, you're talking about even like day 3 guys like Gabriel Davis, Darnell Mooney. Every receiver I can think of, like CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Shenault, Ayuk. I can go on and on. All of them broke out except Van Jefferson and except AGG. That's like the only 2 who didn't break out. So, I mean, it's kind of demoralizing when you have such a higher hit rate and you don't get anything back. But I think they're looking for a receiver. I think the N'Keal Harry like trade rumors speaks to what they're looking at. So I don't think they'll go day 1 for a receiver, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think day 2, like, yeah, they're going to be looking for somebody. Maybe Nico Collins, kind of like the next Chase Claypool.
Yeah. I love Nico. That's my question. That's why I wanted to ask who y'all are cutting, because to move some guys in, you got to you got to get rid of some junk. So that leads me to the next point. I think we definitely all three agree we're drafting somebody. And I saw a poll. I forgot who it was. I think it was PFF Washington. Like put up like the stats of like Washington fans doing mock drafts with Washington. Not many people actually have us getting a wide receiver at pick 19. Obviously, it really just depends who falls. If Devontae Smith by some chance falls or Waddle by miracle falls to 19, like I think that's the obvious pick at 19. Like you just don't say no to one of those guys, right?
When I think of Devontae Smith falling, I think of a feather falling through the sky.
All right, look. What's the show Around the Horn where he just like mutes the
Yeah, exactly. It's Around the Horn. That's right.
Let me deduct 10 points from Nate.
Exactly.
Yeah, freeze the frame. So like I said, but if a guy like that falls, maybe Bateman. I know it's some people will agree and some people don't. At 19 would be a good pick for us. But it seems like more people are learning towards the day 2 wide receiver. So that's what I want to talk about. We've heard Nico Collins get brought up. A guy that I mentioned today was Des Fitzpatrick from Louisville. Had a great pro day. I think he ran like a 4.42 something, pretty quick for his size. I think he has a higher upside. If you had to pick kind of like a sleeper guy in like the 3rd, 4th round, Nate, who are you going after?
Yeah, so I don't want to take George's.
Yeah, no, go ahead, man. No,
George is
he's on Draft Network looking up the wide receiver. He's like, shoot.
No, he has a few good ones, so I won't take his. So I will say Cade Johnson is someone who really interests me.
I like
Cade Johnson is a guy. He's like 5'10". He's an older prospect. He's really productive. It was level 2, so it wasn't in Alabama or anything fancy like that. But he's a guy who has like an awesome release package, and you saw that when you went to the Senior Bowl. He's a guy who he creates separation away with his release package, and he's faster than you think. He doesn't drop anything. He probably had the catch of the Senior Bowl, and he's not a big guy by any means. But Cade Johnson is a guy who you could see go around 4. And some have even said day 2. So he interests me because you got to stack the slot receiver room. I know we have Curtis Samuel, but he's more of a weapon, but that's a guy I'm interested in. I know who George is going to say, so go ahead, George.
Thank you for saving that for me. I appreciate that. I love Jalen Darden, man. That's my man, dude. North Texas right there. He's awesome.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know much about him, he's from North Texas, Conference USA, 5'9", 175. He's a jitterbug, man. He's an explosive player. He basically just get the ball in his hands, he's going to take off. He averages 16.1 yards per catch. I believe he had like 19 touchdowns last year. And he just is like a firecracker. Just give him the ball, and he basically is the fastest player out there. I love him. I just think he has a lot of potential. You can get him pretty late from what I understand. Probably 3rd, 4th round. I can see him landing there. I think he would have an explosive package. It would also provide that versatility look that Scott Turner wants. Go ahead, Coleman.
And Josh has some insider info on him. Tell us about the weight.
Yeah, I want to hear about this.
The weight gain, because that matters a lot to someone like me. I don't care about 40 times. I care about.
They said, "What did he eat today?"
I care about 40 times in reference to your size and your weight. That means so much more. If you run a 4.5, but you're 6'4", 220 pounds, that's more impressive than a 150-pound guy running like a 4.4.
Yeah. So me and Jalen talk on the daily. Like, I love this dude. Like him and Austin Watkins. Those like my 2 guys. Austin Watkins is another guy. Great hands. You can be play on the outside. Terrible offense at UAB. Someone I'm looking at in the 4th round, possibly too. But the one thing with Darden, I don't know exactly how small he was as a freshman. But Nate mentioned like he's gained like close to 40 pounds of muscle since he came into college. Like he was literally just yeah, he looked like Nate when he first showed up.
That's so funny.
And now he's a stud. Like, and he told me, like, I was like asking like when his pro day and stuff was. And it was like what, 2 days ago? I think it was yesterday.
It was like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
But like he's been like around like the 165 range like once the season ended. And he was like, I'll be 175 by pro day. And he weighed in like 174.5 or something like that, pretty close to it. And I know he wants to play like the 180, 185 range, which would be phenomenal. And I mean, that's what people knock Devontae Smith for. Like Nate throws his jokes around how small Devontae Smith is, but he plays like he's Calvin Johnson. So that's the knock is like the size, but like, I don't know. I'm not too harsh on like size. Like if you play big, that's what I look for, like competitive toughness and like your play speed and your play strength. Like to me, I'm not too worried about the scale, but the fact that he is gaining weight helps for sure.
Does it show up like on the film when you watch that's the big thing for me. Like think about a guy like Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell was supposed to blaze. He was supposed to run a 4.2 or something crazy like that. And if you watch him, like he's like 155, 160 pounds, and he's not physical at all. He can't make any contested catches underneath. He's not reliable, and he doesn't really break a lot of passes. He just runs away from people. And that's actually what Dwayne Eskridge is like this too. A lot of people really like Dwayne Eskridge, and I understand why. Like he really broke out his last year, but like he also was 24 years old and dunking on like 19 and 18-year-olds. So congratulations. But it's not so much he broke tackles, he just ran away from people. There's a difference there. He wasn't physical. And that's something you'll see on tape when you watch Tutu Atwell. And I think Darden is really physical. He broke a ton of tackles. He had a ton of forced missed tackles if you look at his profile. So he's exciting as well.
And if you look at like his size and stuff like that, people just say, oh, just throw him in the slot. But I feel like he could play on the outside too, because of what you mentioned, Nate. Someone else that Gregory mentioned, I like to call him Dynamic Brown, Dynamic Brown. Phenomenal tape. Like he has some of the best tape out of wide receivers. Like Nate, he's over there drooling. Sit back. Put a seatbelt on. No, I love Brown's game. Same with Daz Newsom. Like that offense, there's so many weapons. Not even to mention like the running back room, and then Sam Howell. Like it's insane. But I love Dynamic Brown. Like I would be ecstatic if we got him here. He also mentioned Anthony Schwartz. I'm not too high on Anthony Schwartz just because he went to Auburn. Same with LSU guys. But to me, it's really just looking at. And my question for you is: you mentioned Cade, but could you actually play Cade on the outside, or is he like a strictly mostly slot guy?
You can play.
Like, do we need another slot?
Yeah, I thought he was more of an outside guy, right? Nate?
No, he is more of a slot guy. He can play on the outside.
He did special teams some a little bit too.
Yeah, he did play on the outside like there, but like he's mostly a slot. He's like 5'10". He's not really that big. So he's not really a boundary receiver, but I mean he's still good. I mean he can still play on the outside occasionally. He's just not a guy you want all the time. But if I can talk about
like Rashad Bateman or
he's no Rashad Bateman, but like Diami Brown, if you give me like 30 seconds to talk about him. So I know some people are starting to hear more about him because Chris Sims like ranked him. I think Chris Sims had him ranked like it was like number 3 or that guy just like
4th or 5th. Yeah.
That guy just he sits in a layer and just watches film by himself. He doesn't like cross check his work. He's a confirmation bias king. He doesn't he has no frame of reference. He just like makes up wild assumptions, but people always remember like his wild calls that worked. And you don't remember all the failures and stupid things he says. And that's kind of like how it goes. That's like Stephen A. Smith or Skip in a nutshell. But anyway, Diami Brown is a proud member of the Triple 20 Club. And that's breaking out before age 20 touchdowns in 2 seasons, and then over 20 yards per reception. He has been the best deep threat in college football the past 2 years. Sorry, Jalen Waddle, but you have to play enough to be the best deep threat in college football. And some guys, like, you actually have to be on the field. So, but he has a limited route tree. I will say that it's more of like vertical stems, but he's a guy who's really good at getting releases. And that's something that's so huge transferring from college to the NFL. That's something Terry McLaurin was great at. It was releases. That's what separated him. But he can also run a mean slant. Diami Brown can run a mean slant. He can create after the catch. North Carolina just never really asked him to do that. But that's a guy I really like. He's probably going to go day 2, and we probably won't have a shot at him. But I do like Brown a lot.
Yeah, we could literally talk draft wide receivers for a couple hours because it's loaded. But to me, it's really about scheme and fit and like what we really want. Like, I like how a lot of people are just like, oh, go get, Shi Smith, go get like this guy who's going to play strictly in the slot. Like, I'm like, why? Like, to me, I've been wanting that outside big guy so bad, like that Rashad Bateman, Nico Collins, kind of outside wide receiver.
Terrence Marshall. Were you not going to say that?
No. I mean, but at 19, I don't think he makes it to 19. He's not going to make it to 51.
I think he could go in round 1, like the end of round 1, maybe something like that.
Out there. I think that's one thing we should look at. I know Nate's all about this too. Picking at 19, you're kind of in no man's land, right? You're always kind of picking someone a little bit too high, or you're basically overreaching for somebody. I feel like if we could possibly trade back, like that money spot in this draft is like from 20 to 50, like right after us and right before us, which kind of stinks, right? You can get that Zaven Collins there. You can get anyone, Terrence Marshall there. You can get Nick Bolton there as well. There's so many good prospects. I would look at that. If I had the option was on the table, I'd love to stay in the first round, have a pick, but also gain another pick before 50. That'd be my dream scenario right there. I'd love to do that if we could.
Yeah, that'd be sick. And wide receivers fall. That's like the biggest thing talked about every single draft. I know, Nate, you can attest to it. Wide receivers fall. Who was it?
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb. Yeah,
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb fell like way out of where he was projected to go. And
By the way, CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. I think he'll be the best receiver in the NFC East by this time next year.
He's going to blow up. I agree with you, Nate.
That one catch was filthy where he like fell back
great.
and that was, it was dirty. But we have Tatum McLaurin, so I don't care.
I love it.
So 2 quick little lines, because I've been doing a lot of betting lately. Speaking of which, hopefully Michigan's winning right now. Okay, yeah, Hornets won, so we're good. So two things I want to do an over-under on. So we saw Terry hit that 1187 last year. My question is, are you going over or under 1,200 receiving yards for Terry next season? This is with the addition of Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries, not huge hit to the numbers, and then possibly drafting another outside guy. Do you think it's reasonable for him to hit that 1,200 mark? Because, the quarterback play has increased with Fitzpatrick now. Nate, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so if that's the line, if you're saying it's 1,100 or whatever, you're always going to take the under and something like that. If you're getting into betting, because like that's a given. Because like he could get injured, something could happen. But if you're saying he plays 16 games, yeah, I think there's a great shot he can go over 1,100. I mean, who's threatening him for targets? And when I talk about like breakout receivers, usually the year receivers break out and have the biggest jump from their last year to the next year is year 3. That is the biggest breakout year there is. So that's something to look out for. And now he finally has a quarterback who can get him the ball, hopefully, and is accurate. I mean, dude, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was in the top 5 in QBR, deep ball completion percentage, play action completion percentage, under pressure completion percentage, and clean pocket completion percentage like last year. So like he's solid all the way around. So yeah, I feel good about that. But if you're talking about like over and under, like I would bet the under just because like you don't know, he could get hurt. Something could happen.
Safe. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make.
It's like how much are you betting? Is your phone bill depending on it?
Phone bill.
You just wait till the NFL draft, man. I can't wait to draft. I have so many props I'm going to bet on. I'm sure you guys will indulge as well. We'll have to link up on that.
100%.
Yeah, I got some good ones. I made some. Who was the Arnett was the guy I bet would get drafted high last year and paid out for.
I remember that. I remember you getting really excited on air about that.
Yeah, because I felt good. I called that happening. So, George, mine for you is Curtis Samuel all-purpose yards 1,200. Now, don't be a Nate. Don't play it safe and be the conservative here. Be aggressive, George. Go all in. I put $100 on you and say, look, if it hits, it doubles. If not, you lose $100. Over, under 1,200 all-purpose yards.
Oh, no doubt. 100%. I put $100 down on that. Dude, Curtis Samuel is definitely going to have 1,200 yards, over 1,200 yards. For one, both of you guys are kind of neglecting the fact that we're playing 17 games next year. So first of all, you keep that in mind, right? There's always an additional game. It's a few things over there, right? Let me kind of go back to Terry McLaurin real quick. So we had 93 targets last year in 14 games. He just gets fed the ball all the time. And I think our offense is going to start skewing more towards a passing offense with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think we're going to start passing the ball. Dude, you guys have saw everyone's watching this right now. You guys have seen that next gen stats scatter plot, right? It was like, dude, we had the fewest amount of plays. The air yards were our lowest. We had the slowest rate of offensive play calling. It was awful. I think it's all going to go out the window with Ryan Fitzpatrick. 18 years in the league. He's going to be more experienced. He's going to call plays. He's going to throw that 50-50 ball. He's going to go for it. I think, going back to your question, though, Curtis Samuel, I think he's going to probably I don't think we're going to have 2,000-yard receivers. I don't think it's going to go with that. I don't think it's going to go like that. I think McKissick will eat into it. I think Humphries will eat into it and whatever boundary, Thomas as well. So I think Samuel probably 1,200. I think so, though. I think between 800 yards. I think he'll do it. Nate's not into it.
I think he said like 850 and then add like 250 rushing yards. Like last season, he had like 870 and like 300 and something.
Yeah.
Like rushing.
So, every year I do like projections, and I base my projections off of like what happens the year prior, because that's kind of where you get your numbers from. And like that would be totally out of the realm. Like that would be wild if he did. But I mean, it's possible when you're talking about all-purpose yards and if they don't add anyone in the draft. But I mean, again, Samuel has to stay healthy, and
That's true.
I don't know. I could see that. And we did see a big uptick in like passing the ball more and faster pace of play. And we still weren't good last year. And it's because like our offense was so inefficient throwing the ball. But I mean, you're seeing the right things from Turner. You're seeing the right process. You're just not always seeing the results. And when he's gotten good QB play, guess what? We almost beat the Super Bowl champion. So that left a really nice taste in everyone's mouth. So like, let's see what happens next year. But 1,200 would be wild for a second receiver on our team. I mean, I remember when people were saying the same thing about Curtis Samuel in 2019. They were saying this is his big breakout year and he's going to crush it. And that never came to fruition. So I'm obviously like he has a quarterback upgrade, but like we'll see. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of yards.
I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. Didn't the Panthers have DJ Moore and Anderson both over 1,000 last year?
They did, but like the year before that, they just had Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore. So like it was just those two, and that's why everyone was like Curtis Samuel's going to break out, and it was hard on the outside. Cam got hurt, and then you had Kyle Allen have one of the worst seasons we've ever seen for a quarterback. He really turned around his career here in DC, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I'm expecting big things out of him. I know Nate liked his play. You mentioned the next gen stat charts. I love posting them after the game because of how sad it looked. Hopefully this season it looks a lot more colorful than just a dark blue field and a couple green lines going out 10 yards from checkdowns. But fellas, that is it. And if y'all want real quick to shout out where you can find yourselves on Twitters to everybody. Nate, I know you have something awesome going on that I want you to talk about real quick. And George has some sweet articles that have posted lately. So Nate, go ahead and tell the Twitter folks what you're working on and where to find you.
Yes, you can catch me on Twitter at JayhawkChalk. So what I'm doing with my buddy Rod Murray is we are doing a limited edition kind of series leading up to the draft where we cover a different position every week, and we're calling it Washington Football Team Draft Day. And we're going to drop like different threads every day talking about prospects. We're going to have one show doing an overview of the position. And then we're going to have another show called The War Room where we kind of dive in and like make our points heard about, who were the most interested for those positions and yada, yada, yada. And I'm sure you'll see George and Josh and a few other friends on the War Rooms later on down the road. But Washington Football Team Draft Day, that's the main thing I'm doing. So check out that work. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. George.
Cool. What's up, guys? So I'm George Carmi. You can find me at gcarmi21. I'll be posting articles on fullpresscoverage.com with a little team that I have going on right now. I recently put out my most recent mock draft 1.0. Take a look at it and see how that goes. I'll be changing and upgrading that as time goes on and more trades come along there. Tomorrow I'll be on this podcast with Talking Sports with Manny, so you guys can find me on there tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be around on Twitter, so hit me up, guys.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that draft day. That's gonna be stressful. Like I'm gonna feel like I'm on the clock. Like when we do our show, I'm gonna have to be ready for that, especially with Adam. Adam's got all the nuggets. So.
I'm just gonna be like the general manager, and you guys all have to make your point to me, and I'm gonna be like, no, that's terrible. Like just no running backs ever, and we're never running the ball, and I'll be awful. But
my only request is like a fake commissioner that we can all boo. That's literally all I want.
Let's do it.
Looking forward to that. And I'm actually heading to the draft too. I think I told y'all. Got my tickets, got off for work. Can't wait for that. I got a buddy up in Cleveland that I'm meeting up with. And then also one of my buddies here coming. So hopefully I can like do some live stuff, send y'all some videos, drop some content there too. So stay tuned for that. But definitely check out George and Nate. There's a reason why I'm always talking about them and having them on because they're two of my favorite followers on Twitter and know a lot of stuff. So gentlemen, it was a pleasure having y'all on, and we will see y'all later.
Make it move.
But I'm a hop in this foreign and like a fool. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful.